When war veteran Lewis Hicks called 911 to report what he thought was a simple theft, he had no idea the call would lead to something much more than just filing a police report. When the officer who responded stepped into his kitchen, she noticed something that completely caught her off guard. In his quiet neighborhood in East Austin, Texas, Lewis Hicks was known as the friendly older gentleman who helped folks with their yard work and made cornbread that everyone said was the best they'd ever tasted. He was always the first to offer help, but hardly anyone realized that he himself was struggling behind closed doors. One afternoon, he headed out to his backyard shed to grab some tools and realized something wasn't right. A few pieces of his equipment were gone. Confused and a little unsettled, he called 911. Officers Chastity Salazar and Bino Cadenas arrived to take his report. They were kind and respectful, listening carefully as Mr. Hicks explained what had happened. Officer Salazar also thanked him for his service, which brought a small, proud smile to his face. But just as they were wrapping things up, she noticed a strange sound. Something about the house felt off. She asked if she could take a closer look, and that's when she discovered something no one had expected. Police officers deal with all kinds of situations every day. Sometimes they have to act quickly in dangerous moments when lives are on the line. But there are also times when the right thing to do looks very different. In Mr. Hicks's case, Officers Salazar and Cadenas soon realized that the stolen tools were just a small part of what was really going on. Lewis Hicks was a proud man who loved his country deeply. As one of over 16 million Americans who served in World War II, he had been part of the fight in Europe and the Pacific. He had likely endured freezing cold, long days with little food, and the constant danger of battle. But when soldiers like Mr. Hicks made it back home, many faced a different kind of struggle, figuring out how to adjust to normal life again. Lewis Hicks had served in both the armed forces and the Navy. When his time in the military came to an end, he returned to the home he'd grown up in on the east side of Austin. After his mother passed away, he took on the responsibility of caring for his two younger sisters. He lived simply and took pride in being able to manage everything on his own. As the friendly grandfather figure on the block, he was known for using his tools to fix up kids' bikes. Over the years, even well into his 90s, Lewis could still be seen helping neighbors with yard work or lending a hand with small repairs. And just about everyone knew and loved his old-fashioned homemade cornbread. But at 92 years old, Mr. Hicks was quietly reaching the point where he needed someone to look out for him. The problem was, there wasn't anyone left to call. That was until Officers Salazar and Cadenas showed up and realized something had to be done. Officer Chastity Salazar had heard the soft hissing of the gas stove and asked if Mr. Hicks was okay. He was in the middle of cooking, but when she stepped into the kitchen, she saw something that didn't sit right. The stove was on, but there was no pot or pan inside. Instead, a small fan had been set up nearby. It hit her right away. He wasn't cooking, he was trying to warm the house. With no working heater and another cold winter settling in, Lewis had decided to rely on his gas stove and oven to stay warm in his small, aging 1930s home. Having lived through war and tougher times, he believed he could handle a Texas winter this way, even if it wasn't ideal. It wasn't comfortable, but it was something. Still, what felt like a small fix could have turned into a real danger. Gas stoves release carbon monoxide, nitric oxide, and nitrogen dioxide, gases that can seriously affect breathing and heart health. Using them all day for heat and leaving the oven door open like he had only made it worse. On top of that, it created a fire risk and could be especially dangerous if there were ever a leak. Mr. Hicks didn't have any other safe way to keep warm through the winter. He did his best to be careful, checking the stove often to avoid problems, but even that added more stress to his day. His setup got the job done in a way, but it came with real risks. It could have led to gas exposure or worse, starting a fire. As Officer Salazar stood there and looked around the small kitchen, she knew she was technically supposed to warn him about the dangers and possibly even report the situation. But all she saw in front of her was an elderly man doing his best to survive. He wasn't asking anyone for help. He was just quietly doing what he could, even if it meant freezing through the cold months. A tight ache formed in her chest. This man reminded her of her own grandfather, and the thought of him trying to survive winter like this was too much. Holding back the emotion rising in her throat, she gently asked Mr. Hicks if he had any other way to stay warm. He told her he used to have a heater, but it had burned a hole in the carpet the last time he turned it on. It hadn't felt safe since then, so he'd stopped using it. That moment stayed with Officer Salazar. As she and her partner left the house, she was deeply moved. A man who had given so much to his country deserved to live out his years in peace, not bundled in blankets, struggling to stay warm. Later, Officer Salazar talked it over with Officer Cardenas, and they both agreed they needed to step in. In addition to handling emergencies, police work often touches on social needs too. Thankfully, their department had strong ties with several local charities. They reached out to the Austin Police Association Cops for Charity, as well as St. David's Foundation. Through these groups, they were able to get a brand new heater and air conditioner delivered right to Mr. Hicks's home. Mr. Hicks was truly touched by what they did. For years, he'd been quietly managing on his own, and he never thought anyone would step in. Speaking to the news later, he said, "You hate to ask anybody, because sometimes they'll frown on you, and I'm a true veteran. I won't ask." But the kind-hearted officers weren't finished just yet. They still had more help planned for the man who had given so much. What started with a routine visit to check on a stolen tool ended up shining a bright spotlight on the home of World War II veteran Lewis C. Hicks. The story of Officers Chastity Salazar and Bino Cardenas helping him out quickly caught the attention of news stations across Texas and beyond. People couldn't stop talking about it. And as the story spread, it inspired even more folks to pitch in and support a humble veteran who had once stepped up to serve his country. The wave of support left 92-year-old Lewis Hicks emotional and grateful. Fighting back tears, he told one reporter, "It means everything. The things I've been trying to do since the 40s. I've been asking for help, and now it just came in. God is good." Soon, the Austin Police Department and Mr. Hicks found themselves overwhelmed by the growing number of people who wanted to help. Just a few days after the first heater was delivered, Officers Salazar and Cardenas returned to Mr. Hicks's door with even better news. Someone had donated an electric fireplace that would be professionally installed. Along with it came hot meals, coffee, and a batch of Tiff's Treats cookies, a popular Texas favorite. The Austin Police Association, St. David's Foundation, and Charity for Cops also pitched in again, purchasing 10 additional heaters to help other veterans in similar situations. As more and more people asked how they could contribute, Officer Cardenas stopped by again and gently suggested they work together to put together a simple wish list. "Mr. Murkia," Hicks mentioned needing a few groceries and some clothes. In response, Officer Cardenas set up a GoFundMe page on his behalf, and thanks to the generosity of everyday people, they raised over $10,000 to help the aging veteran. But the kindness didn't stop there. Another group soon stepped up with bigger plans to improve Mr. Hicks's living space. The Wind Therapy Freedom Riders, a local motorcycle club based in Austin known for community outreach, had heard about his story. Their mission includes supporting veterans, first responders, and law enforcement. When they learned about Mr. Hicks, they didn't hesitate to lend a hand. Having lived in the same house since 1936, Mr. Hicks had naturally gathered a lot of stuff over the years. His longtime hobby of fixing broken bikes and lawnmowers had left the yard full of old equipment and tools. While he'd always meant to clear some of it, age and declining strength had made it harder and harder to keep up. The Wind Therapy Freedom Riders arrived at Mr. Hicks's home with a group of volunteers ready to get to work. The bikers, strong, determined, and full of energy, tackled the yard cleanup with real purpose. Before long, Mr. Hicks could see a clear change. His yard was transformed, and his home felt refreshed. The team also installed a bright outdoor light to help keep the area safe and discourage any future break-ins. They even made plans to put up a perimeter fence to give him extra protection and peace of mind. At the end of the day, club president Luis Rodriguez handed Mr. Hicks a special gift, a Wind Therapy Freedom Riders vest with the name Big Papa proudly stitched across the back. Officers Salazar and Cadenas stayed in touch with Mr. Hicks, continuing to check in and make sure he was doing okay. Their thoughtful actions not only changed one man's life, they reminded everyone that police officers often go far beyond the call of duty. And this story didn't just stop there. Because of the media attention it received, a couple of Mr. Hicks's long-lost relatives saw the story and reached out. He might still live in the same quiet house, but now he's far from being alone. What a heartwarming story. Thank you for treading this trail of tales till we travel together again on another adventure.